Alright guys, my name is Shervin, welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to talk about debit cards and why you should almost never use them. Now I'm sure most of you know this, but in case you don't, a debit card is a card that is linked to your checking account. And anytime you use your debit card to pay for something, you're essentially taking money out of your checking account to pay for it. Whereas with a credit card, you're using a credit that is provided to you and then you have to pay off the credit that you've used at the end of the month. Now, it may seem that in both cases, you're just spending the same amount of money and there's no real difference. So why you should go for one over the other? In fact, with credit cards, you might say that you're running the risk of forgetting to pay it off on time, and then that means that you have to pay interest on what you've borrowed. And of course, not everyone has the discipline to make sure you're only spending on stuff that you can afford to pay off right away. So before we get into why you should always use a credit card over a debit card if you can, I just want to give this disclaimer that if you're someone who's not disciplined enough to make sure you're only spending on what you can afford to pay off right away, and you're always paying off your balance on time and in full, then you should probably just stick to cash and debit cards. Because again, having a credit card means that you have to be disciplined enough to make sure you always pay it off on time and in full so that you never carry a balance, you never have any interest payments, and you don't hurt your own credit score. So if that is you, make sure to watch to the end to find out exactly what advantages you gain by using a credit card over a debit card. Now, as always, if you're new to my channel and you enjoy this video, make sure to smash the subscribe button down below and join the community. I make new videos about personal finance and investing on a regular basis, and by subscribing to the channel, you get to see all my new videos right as they come out. Also, if you enjoy the video and want to support me even more, do me a favor and smash the like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. But now with all that said, let's talk about the first advantage you gain by using a credit card, and that is building your credit score. Now, a credit score is basically a grade that credit providers give you based on how good you are at managing your credit. So for example, if you're someone who has a lot of credit, you always pay it off on time and in full, and you never carry a balance, that means that you're a very reliable borrower, and that is going to be reflected in your credit score. Now, going forward, anytime you apply for a loan or a mortgage, lenders are going to check your credit score to see how reliable of a borrower you really are. Because again, if you have a high credit score and you are a reliable borrower, that means that there is much less risk for the lenders who are lending you their money. Because again, there's a long history of you always paying off your balance on time and in full, so they can expect that you will keep paying off your balance on time and in full. Or at the very least, there's a far lower chance of you missing payments than someone who has missed a lot of payments in the past. Now, as such, because your high credit score means that you are a lower risk to the bank or the lenders, they're going to be much more likely to accept you for the loan, and they're much more likely to give you a lower rate compared to everyone else. Because again, in their eyes, you're a reliable borrower, there's a far less chance of you missing payments than someone else, and as a result, they want to attract you as a customer, and they're going to do whatever they have to in order to get you as their new customer. In fact, if your credit score is high enough, you can even get to a point where you go around and shop around your mortgage and get the best rate possible from different banks. And you could even negotiate with banks and show them what other banks are offering you and ask if they can actually beat those rates. And again, a lot of times if you have a high credit score, banks are going to try their best to compete with other banks in order to sign you up. So as you can see, by just simply using a credit card instead of a debit card and making sure you're always paying it off on time and in full, you're actually going to save a lot of money going forward on loans and mortgages. Now, the second advantage of using a credit card is that you receive rewards and cash back for every dollar that you spend. Now, of course, different cards give you different rates for different things. Some give you points, some give you actual cash back. But basically, no matter what credit card you have, you're going to get some reward or some cash back for every dollar that you spend. Now, of course, I've made a ton of videos on my channel about the best credit cards available in Canada. For example, there's the Simply Financial credit card that gives you 4% back at restaurants, bars, and coffee shops, which basically means that anytime you're dining out or drinking out, you're going to get 4% of that money back for free without having to do anything else. Now, of course, some argue that these 3 or 4% rates are not going to make that big a difference at the end of the day. But again, I'd just rather get that 4% back instead of just not getting anything back. So again, just another indication that a credit card is going to get you a lot more compared to just a debit card. Now, the third advantage is fraud protection. And this might be a little confusing because debit cards also offer fraud protection, but in a different way. Now, fraud protection basically means that if someone else uses your card or the numbers on your card to buy something for themselves, you're going to be refunded for that money and you don't have to pay off what someone else stole from you. So for example, if someone steals my card and uses it to buy a $1,000 pair of shoes, I don't have to pay off that $1,000 on the card. Now, debit cards do have something similar. If someone uses my debit card to buy themselves a $1,000 pair of shoes, I am going to be refunded that money once the investigation into the fraud is over. But again, as you can see, there's a clear difference between how this is dealt with in debit cards versus credit cards. Now with a credit card, that charge just goes away. I don't have to worry about paying $1,000 for that person stealing my card and using it to buy shoes. But with a debit card, because it's linked to my checking account, when that person uses it to buy their shoes, I'm actually going to lose $1,000 and I have to wait for them to refund that $1,000 once their investigation is over. So sure, eventually it's not going to make that big a difference. You're going to get that money back and either way you're protected. But when you had a credit card that was used to defraud you, you never lost any money whatsoever. Whereas with the debit card, you actually lost that $1,000 until the investigation into the fraud was over and they actually refunded your money. And again, all else being equal, I'd rather just never pay any of that money anyways, instead of just paying it and then waiting for it to be refunded. Now, last but not least, we have a feature that is available in some credit cards, and that is coverages or extended warranties. Now, to go into more detail, some credit cards offer you purchase protection, which means that if you buy an item with their card and that item gets stolen or damaged, they're going to replace it for you for a specific amount of time. Also, some cards offer extended warranties. So if you buy a new laptop, which has a 1-year warranty, they're going to extend it to 2 years or something along those lines. Again, since all else is equal, I'd rather have these extra features than not have them at all. So just one more reason why you should use a credit card when you're buying stuff instead of a debit card if you can. Now at this point, you're probably wondering, is there even any point to having a debit card? Are you ever going to use it really? And I would say you should only really use debit cards in 2 areas. First is with ATMs, and anytime you're using it to deposit cash or withdraw cash. Now, of course, anytime you want to deposit cash into your checking account, you have to use your debit card at an ATM. But even for withdrawing cash, it's much better to just withdraw it straight from your checking account instead of getting a cash advance from a credit card. This way, if you're using the ATMs at the same bank as your checking account, you don't have to pay any fees for withdrawing cash from your own account. Whereas with the cash advance, you have to pay hefty fees, which are just not worth it. Now, the second area is basically anywhere where credit cards are not accepted. Now, a lot of places, utility bills cannot be paid with a credit card. You just have to use a debit card. If you're renting, a lot of times you have to pay rent with cash or with your debit card. And there may be some other merchants where for whatever reason, they just don't accept credit cards. Again, in those cases, you can just use your debit card instead. So again, anytime you can't use a credit card, go ahead and use a debit card. But anytime you can actually use a credit card, make sure you're using the credit card for all those benefits that you're going to receive. But again, I cannot stress this enough. You have to make sure you're always paying off your balance on your credit card on time and in full. And also make sure that you never fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I can just buy something with my credit card right now and then just pay it off later when I get money into my account. That line of thinking is just recipe for disaster, and make sure you're only buying stuff that you can afford to pay off right away with the money that is already in your checking account at that moment. So don't think of the credit card as free money that you don't have to pay off right away. Think of it as real money that you're spending to buy something. And as long as you have that mindset, as long as you have the right discipline to use a credit card, there's no reason why you should ever use cash or debit cards over a credit card. Now, if you're new to the credit card game and you're not sure which one you should go with, I will link my video to the 5 must-have credit cards for every Canadian so that you can get started with that one. There you can check out some of the best no-fee credit cards available in Canada and decide which one you want to go with first. And of course, you can sign up for multiple different credit cards if you choose to do so. Just make sure that you apply for them one at a time and maybe 3 or 4 months separated from each other. And of course, you can apply for more than just one credit card if you choose to do so. Just make sure that you're spacing out your applications by 3 to 4 months at least. This is because anytime you apply for a new credit card, your credit score is going to be lowered temporarily and for a limited time. And after 3 to 4 months, it should bounce back. Which means that if you don't wait 3 to 4 months to apply for a new credit card, you may get flat out rejected. So just make sure you're spacing out your applications and you should be totally fine. Now that's about it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Make sure you're following me on Instagram. I post there regularly, so if you want to be a part of it there, make sure you're following me there. And as always, if you have any questions about any of the stuff that we talked about in this video, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. I always respond to every single question that comes in. And now with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.